Welcome to the Guardians of Hope podcast, where we bring together parents, nonprofits, legal, and medical experts dedicated to positively impacting children's lives. I'm your host, Cynthia Ramsaran. The purpose of this podcast is to inform and unite. Please seek advice from your attorney or doctor to address your specific needs. The thoughts and opinions of my guests are not necessarily my own, so thank you all for joining and sharing. All right, welcome everyone. As the year winds down and routines dissolve, many families struggle to maintain balance and joy. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Caroline Danda, a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in cognitive behavioral therapy for children and adolescents. She's here to unpack how parents can navigate the seasonal chaos, manage children's shifting schedules, and helping us all stay emotionally present during the holidays. Dr. Danda, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Excellent. Now, before we get started, tell me about your work since we last had you on the podcast.
Well, my private practice is still booming. I have a pretty full private practice, and I love working with kids, teens, and their families to just help them get unstuck and build resilience. That's really what my goal is. And I work pretty collaborative with parents because kids don't live in a bubble. So we're always working together to help them all find resilience together. And the other thing that I've kind of been doing outside of my private practice is sharing a lot of the insights I've gained over 20 years in practice, as well as being a mom of 3 in workshops and trying to provide support for families who may not be able to make it to therapy. Want to provide relatable tips and down-to-earth frameworks for being able to feel confident in how we're raising our kids.
All right, thanks. You've got your plate full. So you're a great expert for us to learn a lot about how we can stay grounded and present during the holidays. What are your strategies for parents to manage holiday stress while also staying emotionally available for our kids?
I would say the number one thing is do what's right for your family. I feel like there's a lot of information out there about all the different traditions and all the things you could be doing. And I think it's really important that you think about, what do I really want for my family, and what are the values and what are the activities that are most meaningful for us. I like to think about presence over presents. So really, memories aren't coming from all the gifts we're giving and this time of year. They're really coming from the activities that we share together. I would also say breaking down all the different tasks, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed. And so one of the things I try to do is at night, I try to look at my calendar, really see like, okay, well, what's on my day? What do I have to do? And really try to think about, how do I prioritize the things that matter the most, and what can I say no to, and what can I delegate, and then let the rest of it go, and try to involve kids as much as you can in some of the things so that they can experience some of the joy. I had a woman who was telling me about her kid was sick, and they were like, I want to help. And even though this mom was used to doing everything together, she said, well, you can help wrap presents. It wasn't perfect, but the kid felt really great being able to jump in and help, and the child's learning a skill. So I think that's really important, that the more that we can involve the kids and sometimes go with the flow. This year, instead of having a really awesome, not perfectly decorated tree, but decorated with ornaments and other things, mine ended up being decorated with Hot Wheels cars. So we have a Hot Wheels tree, but the kids were excited about it and they loved it. And I kind of just sat back and got to enjoy watching them. So to some degree, like, let those traditions and let those things go with the flow a little bit. Lastly, I would say, I don't think there's any way to escape the stress. So give yourself a little bit of a break. And one of my favorite things to do, whether it's the holidays or not, is breathe between activities. So what that looks like is you literally take a big breath, let your shoulders drop, and feel your mind clear. And when you do that, you're kind of giving a nod to, okay, what I just did is over. Now I'm ready for the next thing. And that helps us stay present in what we're doing instead of always being like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next?
This is wonderful advice. Thank you. I've been doing the same thing with my son, actually. I've been helping him, like, he's been helping me order groceries because we do our grocery orders online. So he's
That's
doing all of
great.
the holiday shopping, like adding it to the cart, not allowed to purchase, but he's a part of the process for planning our holiday meals this year, which is really, what you mentioned about the Hot Wheel treat. It's really delightful to see them involved, and it helps take away some of the stress, I think.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things you mentioned in your when you were talking just now, you said letting go and saying no. I find it hard to do that sometimes, and I'm sure a lot of parents listening
Yeah.
do. Do you have any advice for not feeling guilty when saying no to certain people, especially family members or friends, people you've known for a long time, where you just feel like you got to cut back on some of the activities?
Right. I
Mhm.
think you can graciously say no, but just also not really apologize for saying no at the same time and just say, this is just kind of where we're at right now. And this is what I need to do for my family. Or, thank you for the invitation. But we have so many other things that are happening right now that unfortunately we're not going to be able to do that this year. I think so. Graciously saying no, but not necessarily apologizing, just own like this is where we're at. And I
Yeah.
think part of it is letting go of the judgment that we all get. And we think everybody's judging us for what we're doing or not doing. And we can't base our parenting on other people's judgment or even our own anxiety about failing our kids. And again, it goes back to, the fact that you're even wondering or worrying about, how is my kid's holiday? Like, means you're a great parent and you're doing things and your kids will have a great holiday. And they'd rather have a less stressed parent who's present than do more things.
Exactly. Exactly. Fair enough. So, my next question is about managing our own stress and noticing when it is impacting our kids. How can we recognize that this is happening and our stress is actually impacting our interactions with our kids?
I would say the number one way to tell that you're overextended is when your patience runs out. When you start having trouble responding to, or you're reacting rather than responding to even normal everyday things like getting the kids out the door and making dinner and in doing all the things that you normally do throughout the day. And if you've lost your patience and you find yourself you've got a much shorter fuse than you normally do, then that's a sign that obviously you're overwhelmed and that it's time to kind of take a pause for yourself. And it doesn't even have to be a huge pause. It can just be like putting on headphones and listening to one song, or it could be, asking for 10 minutes and just saying, we're having quiet time. And building in quiet time is another way that you can build in time that you have presence to settle, but then also kind of teaches the kids because they're going to need downtime too.
Mhm.
I would say the other thing I find myself doing whenever I get overly stressed, especially if I'm going somewhere, is I end up trying to kind of find more ways to control things. So the more you try to control things, it's partially because you might be feeling overwhelmed or that you can't control as many things. And so you're trying to put control in there. And one of the ways I notice that I do that is I might start paying extra care for my appearance. And I'm spending a lot of time making sure, trying to see if my hair right, is my makeup right, do I look okay? And so that's one of the ways that I experience stress is I kind of like try to focus it on that because I feel like it's something I might be able to control, but it's really a false illusion of control.
That makes a lot of sense, Dr. Danda. I do the same thing. So, when it comes to rituals and connections, how can family create meaningful connection rituals that keeps everyone feeling supported during potentially stressful times?
Again, I think the important part is really thinking about once you're in these activities, how can you be present? If you end up kind of rushing through it and just getting through things, then you're missing the connection. And I would also say it's really important, even though these are really fun times, to put the phone down. Not everything has to be photo documented, because I feel like every time, your phone is available or you're always photo documenting, I think sometimes you're missing out on the joy of fully being immersed and present in something. And I think those are important. It's important to honor some traditions, whatever traditions work for your family. And the more that you can go back to some of those basics, what do they say? What's the reason for the season? And get out of the commercialization of it and think about, what are we doing to really celebrate what it means to spread holiday cheer and really be helpful and kind people and celebrate each other, and continue to involve the kids in some of that preparation. Like what you were saying is, preparing the holiday meal, lighting the candles, adopting a family, thinking about that, having kids, maybe even, older kids might even be able to find out where to go see the great, awesome lights, have them do some research, uh, do things that really kind of help you stay connected, and also off technology.
Absolutely. Off technology and not taking pictures of everything is so important to stay focused and really present in the moment. So that's really helpful. Now, we covered the holidays, Dr. Danda. We have a lot of time that kids are out of school in between the holidays.
Right.
So this equates to unstructured time, and that can be stressful alone. So, what about that time? Do you have any techniques for maintaining consistent boundaries and expectations, even when these routines are disrupted?
My favorite phrase to think about is, you want to be structured yet flexible, right? So
Mhm.
even though that sounds like it's an oxymoron, but it's actually not. So I think having a little bit of a way of understanding day to day and letting kids know what's happening day to day so that they're not surprised or they're prepared. A lot of times it's really helpful to have a whiteboard where even you go through the day and they can visualize it, is more effective than just telling them what's going to happen. And this includes building in, you know, break time, right? Or especially if you are working from home and your kids are home, that can be really stressful, because then they're a lot of times needing your attention or they're needing extra support, and you have to be on a call or you have to get work done. I think it's important that you can put that structure in there of knowing, like, okay, this is, work time and this is your time to be on your own. You might also kind of create, if you're really into creative things, you can create a theme for the day. Like, here's what we're working on today. Or you can always have, like, I know, like, a lot of times, like, we would have like one outing of the day just to kind of get the kids going and get them active and get them moving. But then they would also be able to come back home and maybe settle in for a while, particularly for some of the younger kids. So I think keeping regular routines is really helpful as much as you can. So keeping meal times and things and bedtimes more consistent. But
Mhm.
also, again, life is not really that rigid and it's often very changeable. And so you want to remember to be adaptable and flexible with that structure, though, too.
So, one word that I hear all the time in my household is bored. I'm
Yes.
bored.
Yes. I've had my
How,
share of that as well.
yes, I'm sure. How can we healthily respond to this?
Um, Well, it's normal that they're bored and they do have a lot more free time on their hands. So I think actually having a little bit of that structure is also one of the ways that can help with the boredom. So they know, like, the time periods where where they need to entertain themselves. And the other thing to think about is boredom's a feeling. And so sometimes when kids are actually really bored, I don't know if it happens to you, but whenever they're bored, they like refuse every single suggestion that they might possibly throw out. So one of the things I like to think about is boredom's a feeling. And just like if you're hungry, have you ever gone to the refrigerator and you're so hungry, but like nothing sounds good? And I think that's what happens to kids, is they're bored, but nothing sounds good. So one of the things I like to do is maybe sometimes come up with a list of things that they can kind of refer back to, like boredom busters. And that could be things like Legos or building or crafts or anything that, or it could even be chores, anything that they can have a go-to. And you might even set a time limit. Hey, I need you to kind of do this for about 30 minutes, find something to do off the list, and then I'm going to check back in. And that's the other thing parents can do is almost have like regularly scheduled check-ins or attention, because I think one of the reasons kids might be bored is not just because they can't find anything to do, but they're also wanting your attention. So I think if we work with that and build those specific times in where you give them some of that attention, then they might come to you less often with being bored.
These are great tips. I really appreciate you taking the time to help me and other parents out when we're managing so much during the holidays, Dr. Danda. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my
Yeah.
pleasure. And really the goal is to really have a full plate, but still be able to enjoy everything on it.
Yes. That's such a good analogy. Tell us where we can find out more about you and your services online so we
Yep.
can learn more about you.
So my website is carolinedanda.com. So you can find out all about my practice and also workshops and speaking that I have available. My book, From Surviving to Vibing, is on Amazon, and you can pretty much reach out to my website. That's pretty much got all the things on there. I'm also on socials. So I'm at Dr. Caroline Danda on Instagram and Facebook and on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out to me, I do try to post some helpful tips and interesting information through there.
Yep. I follow you and I read a lot of your tips. So thank you. And I will be sure to post all of that info in the description of the podcast. So
All right. Thank you so
Dr.
much.
Danda, thank you. Happy holidays to you and your
Yes,
family.
you too. Enjoy.